Colombia has an enormously bright future by choosing that path to sustainable development to the mid-century. We can't go on with the climate changing the way it is with this warming. It would be catastrophic. We need low carbon energy systems. We need sustainable food supplies. We need to protect the biodiversity because you cannot grow food. You cannot grow crops without the biodiversity. Recognize that these are also multi-stakeholder problems. Private investment in many places can't work unless the government is also doing its part.
Hi everyone, I'm César Pabón, Executive Director of Economic Studies of Corfi Colombiana. It's a pleasure to me to have here Professor Sachs. He's a well-known economist and one of the global leaders in terms of sustainability. The idea of this interview is to know his vision worldwide in terms of sustainability and also in Colombia. How do you see Colombia and companies as Corfi Colombiana can take advantage of this agenda of sustainability? So I would like to begin this interview, Professor Sachs. You were one of the leaders in terms of the SDG goals, no? The Sustainable Development Goals. They were done in 2015.
That's correct.
It has been 9 years since then. We're almost in the middle of the race. We're still missing 7 years because this agenda was developed for the 2030. How do you see globally these goals? It's going to be achieved? We're far away. How is your vision in terms of the global implementation as the SDGs?
Well, let me first say how nice to be with you, and second to remind us that Colombia had a big role to play in actually bringing about the Objetivos de Desarrollo Sostenible, the SDGs. This was a suggestion of a wonderful person, Paula Caballero, and also President Santos and his team, who championed that inside the UN. And then all the other governments said, that's a good idea. It took 3 years to negotiate what should be the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, and then they were adopted in September 2015. And I've been an advisor to the UN on that process all the way along. So first, what is the idea of these 17 goals? It is that there should be economic well-being around the world, every country, get out of poverty. Second, that there should be within every country social fairness so that every part of the society benefits, each region of the country, if it's minority groups, indigenous groups, everybody should be part of this. Third, environmental sustainability, because we have a massive global climate crisis, we have a biodiversity crisis, we have a pollution crisis. And fourth, SDG 16 says peaceful and inclusive societies. Peace. I love the idea. 17 is cooperation, partnership. I love that idea too. So why did we adopt the goals? Because the world system is not based on those 4 principles, sorry to say. Yes, people are getting rich, but not everyone. There's poverty in the midst of wealth. There's rising inequalities. There's environmental destruction. There's war. So the idea is, let's get our heads around what we ought to be doing. And that was decided in 2015. How are we doing? Well, there's good news and there's bad news. The good news is that around the world, most of the governments of the world have taken these goals seriously. So 188 of the 193 UN member states have adopted plans for the Sustainable Development Goals. That's good. And I visit governments all over the world. They're working on them. Now, I'll tell you something bad about the 5. Some are in war zones. There's Yemen, there's South Sudan, there's Myanmar, there's Haiti. And there's one more that hasn't had a plan. That's the United States.
Oh my
own
God.
country. Yeah, exactly. Oh my God, is exactly right. In Washington, they're so much focused on getting reelected or on fighting wars or other things. They're not thinking about sustainable development goals. So this brings us to your question. where do we stand? We stand far behind where we should stand. Why? Well, what are we doing fighting a war in Ukraine, for heaven's sake? If Biden and Putin just talked to each other, they could stop this war. Why do we have an ongoing conflict in Israel and Palestine? Because there aren't two states. We need a two-state solution, obvious. And so on and so forth. If we use common sense, we would end the conflicts, and then we would say, okay, now we have the time. Let's focus on saving the world, saving ourselves, actually achieving sustainable development. Then so many shocks, COVID, the pandemics, the wars. So we're behind schedule. And that's my concern. We don't want to give up, certainly, and to say, well, okay, we didn't do that, let's move on. Because these goals are so good, so important, so accurate, actually so well selected by the governments. And the governments have taken a lot of time to work on them, to orient their cabinets, the ministers, around these goals. So we've got to catch up. We also are going to have to extend the homework assignment, really, because it's not going to be achieved by 2030. But we can't be cynical about it and say, oh, forget it, because these goals are really at the center of what a decent world would be.
Totally agree. And it was great to know this story. I didn't know about it, that Colombia was one of the champions or leaders
with the idea.
Absolutely. This, for sure, it's very interesting news. So I would like to land this. So we see there is not a good picture regarding the global affairs, but what about Colombia? What have you seen? I know that you have been here
many
this
times.
Is not the first time. You have been many times, and also Professor Sachs mentioned that he's a fan of Colombian coffee.
Of course. I drink it morning till night.
So what do you think Colombia in this agenda? How is doing Colombia? Are there opportunities that we should take into account? What is the vision regarding Colombia?
Let me say first, on a global scene, don't lose hope, because we're in the midst of a technological advance that's unbelievable. Of course, everyone knows about artificial intelligence, everyone knows about 5G, everyone knows about digital, the digital economy and all the digital platforms and cashless currencies and so many things that can be done right now. Because of the pandemic, everybody had some experience of online education or online healthcare and so forth. So these are great tools if we use them. Part of the world, especially in Asia, is advancing rapidly. That's also good even in Latin America, because, oh, well, they're doing it. Why are they growing 5%, 7% per year? We're only growing 1 or 2% per year. So this is also, it's not impossible to achieve the goals. It's actually possible. When you look at how the world is shaped up, the countries that grabbed the cutting edge technologies and said, we'll go with that. This was first Japan, then Korea, Taiwan, Singapore, Hong Kong, the Asian tigers, then China.
Miracle.
China started around 1980 and for 40 years had super fast growth, and now China produces low-cost photovoltaics, solar panels, low-cost wind turbines. They produce low-cost, high-quality electric vehicles, and on and on and on. So China's really reshaped a lot of the world economy. Great success story. Now, you come to Latin America. The situation has not been great for quite a long time. Very slow growth, every decade crisis. So this has been going on really since the 1980s. And I look at this, and I come so frequently to Latin America, I go so frequently to East Asia, and I'm always trying to make the comparison. The big difference for me has been, when you go to Asia, they're always talking about technology. They're always talking about what's the next thing. They're always talking about how we're going to get industrial capacity. And I want more of that here. I want more of that in Latin America. And in particular, one of the things that these East Asian fast growers did was have a really effective education system. If you look at Taiwan, Korea, Japan, Hong Kong, Singapore, PRC, People's Republic of China, all of them are at the top of the comparisons on the world on education for, say, 15-year-olds, what they know about science, math, and reading. Okay, Colombia's down on the list.
Yes,
it's in the middle. You know, it's not a disaster, but it needs to be higher. So more investment in education, more investment in science and technology, and more investment, I think, in the bioeconomy here, which is one of the major themes. I love Colombian coffee, but you produce so many agricultural products. But even agricultural products, which we sometimes think of, well, that's been produced for ages, they are scientific projects, you know, to produce really cutting-edge agriculture, low inputs in an environmentally sustainable way, resilient to climate shocks. That's a lot of science that goes into that. And we know that much more can be done. Colombia does not invest enough in research and development. The official data say 0.3 of 1% of GDP. I'd say aim for 10 times that.
Well, but there's hope, right?
Of course there's hope.
You can change the view, like,
because you can see a path to success. It's not that it's a mystery, oh, it's impossible. Good education, good science and technology, good public investment, good, strong private financial system. And Colombia has a huge amount of what it takes to achieve the success. Gorgeous country, so many ecosystems, so much biodiversity, so much natural capital, so much human capital. It needs to be mobilized in this way.
For sure, and we have a lot of followers that are like these companies, Colombian companies, that want to invest in sustainability. So I will just ask you, Professor Sachs, what will be your best advice to those companies that are looking to invest in these projects? How do you incentivize them? How you promote this type of investment? There's this famous phrase of transforming billions to trillions, right? We
Yes.
want to multiply. We have a lot of public investment in terms of sustainability, but we require a better effort. So what will be your advice?
I think what all business people need to really appreciate is this isn't a passing fad or just being nice. This is the way the world has to go. We can't go on with the climate changing the way it is with this warming. It would be catastrophic. We need low carbon energy systems. We need sustainable food supplies. We need to protect the biodiversity because you cannot grow food. You cannot grow crops without the biodiversity. So this isn't a nice thing to do. This is a must thing to do. So then each business needs to ask, well, what's my line of work? Am I in energy? Am I in transport? Am I in agriculture? Where do I fit into this story? And analyze in my sector, where are things likely to go? If you're in the agro sector, you have to ask, what is warming going to do to my crop yields? What's going to happen to productivity? What kind of infrastructure investments are needed? How do I make the coffee growing communities, for example, resilient and really sustainable so that they're the world-class places, also for the farmers that are there, as well as for the product that comes out. So it depends on the sector, but I always suggest to business people 4 questions to think about. First, my product line. Am I producing something that's sustainable or something terrible? Second is my production process. Is it environmentally and socially sustainable, or do I have to change that to make it work? Third, my supply chains. I'm buying things from others. Are they in good behavior? And fourth, am I a good citizen in the country, trying to do my part, paying my taxes, following the law, collaborating alongside government to make these communities work well? So these are questions that businesses have to ask regarding their own strategies, what they produce, how they produce, who their supply chain partners are, and their corporate citizenship.
I must confess, Corfi Colombiana is well involved in these projects. Like Corfi Colombiana is in the infrastructure sector, is in the agriculture sector, is in the tourism sector, and with the held with the vice
The
president.
tourism potential is
Huge. It's enormous.
Enormous.
And we have done like a job with the help of the vice president in sustainability, Paula Duran, in doing like this work in every sector on how to invest in investment. But there's always a bottleneck, and this will be like our last question, because I think the time is almost over. But there's always a bottleneck, that is the financial. How do you finance this type of projects? You have traveled many parts of the world. Which could be like your best products or new services that have you seen in the market that can be well implemented in Colombia and that can help these goals of implementing in all sectors, tourism, agriculture, infrastructure, which could be like these financial tools that can help?
This is a very good question, because lowering the cost of capital is critical for success.
For sure.
There are a lot of different components to this. I think Colombia's credit rating can be improved by the right national strategies and showing also to the rating agencies, we're going to grow fast, we're going to grow sustainably, we know what we're doing, here is our fiscal framework, here's our public investment framework, here's our national economic strategy. The credit ratings will go up, the cost of capital will go down. Second, I like the regional development banks a lot. The CAF, for example, the Corporación Andino de Fomento. Excellent institution. It's a regional institution. You know, it borrows at, I think, AA3, or a very high rating, higher than its members that it lends to. So this is a good transformation. The countries have pooled their resources, and then they're able to borrow on better terms than each one individually would. So this is a second point. Inter-American Development Bank, the CAF. And then the third is the national strategies and the domestic financial system. Innovate, recognize that these are also multi-stakeholder problems. You know, private investment in many places can't work unless the government is also doing its part. You need infrastructure for the private business to work, and so forth. So putting those pieces together, I think, is also critical. The more convincing the plan, the more clear the vision, the lower the cost of capital.
Professor Sachs, it has been a great pleasure. I would like to have like a few words. You are being watched like by many Colombians. Always the Objetivos de Desarrollo Sostenible is a topic that everyone has in the top of mind. But I just want to know which will be like the message you would like to give to the ones that are watching us. Is there hope? What are like the next years that you are following?
Let me say, first of all, at a personal level, it's an honor to be here, and I have had so many wonderful colleagues from Colombia, students from Colombia, teachers who have taught me about the world from Colombia. It's a wonderful, beautiful country, and it's a special treat to be a small part of it by being able to be here with you. I think Colombia has an enormously bright future by choosing that path to sustainable development to the mid-century. I have quoted John Lennon, Imagine Colombia in 2050, how it should be as a prosperous, a socially just, an environmentally sustainable, a peaceful country, and then work towards achieving that vision. And I'm sure that the enormously talented people of this country will succeed.
Thank you so much, Professor Sachs. It has been a pleasure for us.
And for me, thank you.